By now I'm sure you're all familiar with the shooting in Hawthorne, California. Under normal circumstances I would usually address this issue on a small scale, which would just be commenting on the video itself, but since there are far too many of the same thing over every bit of the social network, it's come down to this. So as far as the story goes, the police were at the scene of an armed robbery where the suspects were boarded up in a house and a standoff ensued. Along comes 52-year-old Leon Rosby, who was blaring loud music from his car and hanging around within close proximity of what was happening, all while making it blatantly obvious that he was filming what was happening. This wasn't Rosby's first run-in with the police, as he was filed for domestic violence charges and he filed numerous cases against the police for alleged mistreatment in the racial category, so he was probably sticking around to get proof of this. Now, for those talking about how filming a police event isn't illegal, they're right, it isn't. But what Rosby was doing made him a problem. Also, it's been said that Rosby has been told a number of times to clear out, but he resisted. In addition to everything else, Rosby also had his 2-year-old Rottweiler Max at his side. By the time police officers approached Rosby, he put Max in his car and he somehow gave himself up to the police, most likely in hopes of getting the proof he wanted. Of course, Max saw everything that's happening and jumped out of the car to defend his owner, which escalated the situation, since now the police had Rosby and his dog to deal with. It was obvious that the police weren't going for an event that would make headlines, so an officer attempted to grab Max's leash several times, but Max resisted and lunged at the officer with bare teeth, prompting the officer to shoot the dog in self-defense. And in just an instant, the video streamed and the morons of the internet dropped by to unleash the barrage of the usual "fuck the police" statements or usual content. Either way, it was obvious those comments were short-sighted. Now, whose fault would this be? I'm not really one to point fingers, but it really is pointing more towards Rosby himself. Why, you ask? He was asserting himself as a problem in an armed police conflict, and he was so caught up in his quest for leverage against the police that he didn't really see things through. For the sake of avoiding instigation of more hate, I'll put out these questions. Could the situation have been handled better? Yes, of course. Animal control could have been notified so they could prevent further escalation. Was the amount of force excessive? Yeah, no fucking question, but the officer was in the heat of the action with his fight-or-flight instinct, and he contained the situation with limited resources before more people got their throats ripped out. And of course, what about tasers, pepper spray, and etc.? Again, fight-or-flight instinct when facing a dog that could rip your throat out. By the end of the day, all these hateful comments are going to be hilariously ironic, considering how the police are going to be the first group these drooling morons would call when they need help. That's right. The very people doing their jobs that the internet bastardize are coming to their aid. If by now you still abide by your derogatory claims against the police, you should probably work on getting your head out of your ass and realize that police officers faced a rough, difficult situation so it can be safe. The police force isn't perfect and not everything can go exactly the way people want them to, but if you're still alive and on the internet, it means they're doing their jobs right.